Hello, this is Mayor Stephanie Muccini-Berg. Black history is important to remember, to embrace the struggles, challenges, and especially the contributions of a group of people whose introduction to America was riddled with the torment of slavery. Black history gives all of us an opportunity to revisit the multitude of triumphs and extraordinary accomplishments of Blacks in shaping this great city and nation. American history will only be fully understood if we acknowledge Black history. This not only includes our troubled past, but the wonderful lessons of Black Americans who have inspired this country.
Why does Black History Month still matter? Because there's still
many heroes unsung,
voices unheard,
champions unrewarded,
stories untold,
business unfinished,
history unwritten,
dreams unfulfilled.
So, why does Black History Month still matter?
Because there's still a lot of mistakes that need
correcting. And this month gives us all a chance to come together in unity.
Black History Month is one of my favorite months of the year because history is so critically important. To learn about and to remember the history and the significance of the history that African Americans have made throughout our history as a people is something that is critically important. And not just famous African Americans, the everyday African Americans who built the foundation of this country. And hopefully we can take that history and come together during this month and learn about those people. But also learning about those people who have impacted Medford and individuals across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts who have made our city, our state, and our country a better place. We must never forget their sacrifice and everything they have done to make our community better.
So, why do you believe that Black History Month is still important today?
It's important today because America is important. If America is important to you, then the history of Black people in this country is critical. Every day we must relive the history. Sometimes it's difficult, but it's important that we focus on the rich history that Blacks have brought. So I'm happy to be a part of Black History Month. I'm proud to be a Black man, and I'm hopeful more people will learn about Black history.
Hi, I'm State Representative Christine Barber. I represent neighborhoods in Medford, particularly Hillside and South Medford. And we have a wonderful, diverse community in Medford that I'm honored to represent. So Black History Month still matters, so much more so today than ever before. For so long, we haven't fully understood history and the role that African Americans have played in our history, and gathering a greater understanding of that is important for all of us and important today to make sure that we're treating all equally and that everyone has the same opportunities. And without understanding that history, we can't address some of the many challenges that we have in our communities today. So I'm happy to continue to learn more about Black history this month.
Black History Month is important because I feel that our young people, our young Black people, do not know enough about their own heritage. I have on many occasions asked the simple questions. Who discovered the clock? Who discovered different things? And they look at you. They look at you like, what are you talking about? That's because they, as young Black people, don't know their own heritage of just maybe simple, basic Black history. So I still feel that, yes, we need to have it, and we also need to educate our counterparts, our Caucasian people, all the ethnic.
Black History Month matters because we need to celebrate the many achievements and accomplishments that African Americans have contributed to our country and our society over the past several hundred years. It's also a time to remember the struggles that African Americans have also gone through, and also think about the African American story as it relates to the American story. I remember when I first met Representative John Lewis in Congress, and he spoke about his role in the civil rights movement, and that was an incredibly inspirational moment for me to think about how African Americans have stood up time after time to fight for a better country and for equality in this country. But there's still so much more to do to ensure that all African Americans enjoy better education, better criminal justice system, better voting rights, and I think that's on all of us to help continue fighting for justice and equality.
I think Black History Month still matters and is very important because it's an opportunity to introduce the local African American history in Medford to two important audiences. One, younger generations, and two, new people in Medford, of which there are many. So attending an event such as this at the West Medford Community Center is an opportunity to see the portraits of people who are prominent in Medford's African American history. They might see the mural of Doc Counts. They might learn about the African American walking tour in West Medford. They might learn about Sharon Kennedy's oral history. And those are things that can be continued to be explored and learned about throughout the other 11 months of the year. So Black History Month and that learning process is not confined to just the month of February, but is something that happens all throughout the year.
Black History Month still matters because Black history is our history. Black history is the history of America, the history of our economy, the history of our classism and racism, and the history of our failure to fully live into our forebears' vision of a free nation, indivisible with liberty and justice for all. It's only in comprehending the influence and impact of our history, the good, the bad, and the ugly, that we can fully understand our present, repair the breach, and take ownership of creating the kind of future that God has planned for all of God's creation. Our country is more damaged than any other because of the impact of slavery, Jim Crow, the new Jim Crow, the prison industrial complex, and every systemic iteration of white supremacy that stems from that history. If we continue to whitewash the stories, experiences, and brilliant influence of Black Americans, if we teach only part of the American experience, if we miss out on the art and the music and the wisdom of whole parts of our society, if we do not come to fully understand Black history and all that that implies, then we will continue on this path of only a partial understanding of ourselves as a society. We will remain in a state of moral infidelity, and we will privilege some over others. We will continue to fail to create the beloved, free, equitable society that was intended when our democracy was founded. Black history is our history. It's the history of my children and your children and of our grandchildren, and it is our responsibility as engaged citizens to learn it, to know it, and to allow it to transform what has been. I pray that it may be so soon.
Hi, I'm Reverend David Kilpatrick, and I think Black History Month still is important because even though it's 50 years since the era of Dr. Martin Luther King, and even though we've made a lot of progress, there are many, many people that don't know of the great contributions that people of color have made to this country and even to the world. And we need to continue to spread that message, and one way to do that is to celebrate Black History Month. So that's why it's important to me.
I think that our children need to know our history. And I think it's vital that we continue this because they're not getting it in school and other places. So we need to make sure they get it.
Okay. Thank you.
Take a video.
Well, you know, I feel mixed about Black History Month because I think we should be learning about Black history all the time, not just in 1 month. But clearly people do not understand Black history in this country. And there's been an attempt, I believe, by the people who run the country to actually suppress Black history and our understanding of it. one hand, people have talked about eliminating the word slavery from history books in certain states, which is really horrific. But also, we don't hear about all the contributions and great things that African Americans have contributed to this country. So, on the one hand, we need to learn about the suffering that people are still going through and understand that better. On the other hand, we need to learn about all the contributions that African Americans have made to this country.
It's important to remember our country's history because Black History Month is actually like a big part of our history and what we've done in the past. And moving forward, we need to know what we should do and what we shouldn't do. So it matters.
Why does Black History Month still matter? I think for a number of reasons. One of the main ones is that I feel like the history of Black History Month is celebrating the spirit of an entire people that was oppressed, that overcame that oppression. And I think more today than ever, we need to echo that there still is that fight that needs to be fought. The celebration of continuing to fight with love and for equal rights and the American dream that we were denied many years ago, I think is very important to still hold true today, and that people need to know that, still fight for that, overcome that, and celebrate that.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ami Sanye. I am a teacher at Medford High School, and with me are two of my students and my son. And we're here to talk to you a little bit about the importance of African American or Black History Month in February. I'm not going to speak for anyone else here, but I think it's actually wonderful to have a month that we do kind of come back to remembering the amazing participation and just incredible things that have come to our community from people of color. I think it could never really fit into 1 month or 1 year. But it is nice to have something to come back to, especially in classroom curriculum, where we could say, hey, we're going to work with this African American author or this incredible artist in the realm of Black history. So for me, I do think that it can never really be just about 1 month, but it does give us reason to come back to some of the amazing art voices that come out of Black history.
One of the things people don't understand, this country is coming to a crossroad. There's a danger. And if we don't accept who we are, don't accept everybody for what they are, where they come from, it's going to be hard to put it back together. America is one of the greatest countries in the world, as we stated, but America is not exactly where it should have been. Most of our young kids forget, okay, it wasn't that easy for Black Americans to be everywhere they are today. So therefore, we cannot take for granted what we have today. We have to keep it alive. We have to keep the momentum going. Sometimes we go up, we go down. We have to consistently go across to achieve and make way for those who are coming back, because it's not going to get any better. It's getting worse day by day. Unless we recognize what we're doing wrong, we're not going to make change. And by the time we know our kids, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren will have to fight all over again. And we don't want to do that fight. What's that? One more?
Black History Month is still important because it's integral that we honor a great portion of the history of our country. African Americans have been an important part of the fabric of American history ever since, before slavery up until the present. And now with a lot of stuff going on in the country now, it's important that we don't lose sight of that. It's important that we honor, what makes America America by the contributions that every type of person's had to our country. So that's why Black History Month still matters.
I think Black History Month is very important to not only adults, but especially to children, because they hopefully learn about their ancestors from slavery all the way up until our present day. And I think all children regardless of black or white, Hispanic, should go to the Afro-American Museum to learn, like I said before, about the slavery and all the way up to Obama, who was the first Afro-American president. And that's the reason why I think that we should celebrate Black history and be proud of who you are and where you're going to go in the future.
So why Black History Month still matters is because the work of Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement is not done yet. We have voter repression, discrimination in housing and access to services for people of color, and there's still a lot of work to be done.
Time again, it's Black History Month. It's time to remember and honor the African Americans who've shaped our culture and history. These figures have stood up for what they thought was right of thousands of people they represent. Please take a chance this month to remember an important figure in the African American community in and around the city and in the nation. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Michael Glenn. I've lived in Medford since 1980, and it seems to me that there's really no question at all that we need to keep having a Black History Month. Why? Because during Black History Month, people are prompted to look at the history of the African American community in this country, going from the days of slavery till now. As far as I can see, Black history doesn't just mean what happened in 1800 or 1870 or 1910. It includes what's happening now. And as far as I'm concerned, what's happening now is that there's still huge amounts of discrimination and racism in this country. And we need to think about it, understand where it comes from, how it comes up, where it's a major part of our institutions, which affect daily life for millions and millions of people, and try to figure out how to put an end to it. Yes, it would be nice if every day people thought about the history of African American struggles in this country, as well as other groups like immigrants, religious minorities, and so on. But to have 1 month set aside where events are keyed to highlight Black history certainly makes a lot of sense and will raise people's consciousness. So I certainly support the continuation of Black History Month. Thanks.
I'm Paulette Vanderkloot, and I'm a resident of Medford, and I'm on the Medford School Committee. I don't think that we have to look far at all to find out why it's so important that we hold dear the events of and celebrations of Martin Luther King. Only in this past week, we have seen our president say outrageous and absolutely horrible things, which reinforce inequity between people rather than striving for equity. As a school committee member, as a citizen of Medford, and as a citizen of the United States, all I want is to accomplish a world where we live peacefully and respectfully for all people.
Dr. Florence Nottage King. In reference to Black History Month, I would like to see it continue because I was back several years ago. I'm a part of a lot of organizations, but one of them was a sorority. And this lady came up to me. She said Senator Ed Brooke came up to her and always had her, every time he had some work to do, he would always have her do these 2 poems. And she gave me the poems. One of them was The Negro Mother by Langston Hughes, and the other one was Ode to Ethiopia by James Weldon Johnson. Now she wanted me to learn those poems, and she wanted me to be able to say them wherever I went. Now I've been in professional ministry. I've been from Cape Cod and all over, and because I did manuscripts and preached with tapes, they literally went all over the country. So I've been able to share those poems all around the world. Now, The Negro Mother by Langston Hughes, his children, I've come back today to tell you the story of the long, dark way that I had to climb, that I had to know in order that the race might live and grow. Look at my face, dark as the night, yet shining like the sun, the love's true light. And things like that. Our children need to know.
Ellen. I'm here in my office with the petition of Belinda Sutton, who in 1783 petitioned the legislature for her pension. Belinda was born in Africa, enslaved and brought to Medford, and Isaac Royal Jr., when he died, emancipated her and promised her a pension. This is the first of many petitions she had to present in order to try to get her pension. We need to know that we don't just read history. By our action or by our inaction, we make history. We need to know about the dark and dangerous past and about the people who resisted and persisted through long years of struggle and repeated defeat and who made real change. It wasn't just a few heroes, but the actions of so many people, many of them now unknown, who risked their lives for freedom and equality. Black history isn't separate. For example, slavery was the foundation of the American economy in both the North and South, and the fortunes made by Southern planters and Northern industrialists were built on the unpaid labor of enslaved people. The effects of that expropriation continue, and they're part of the reason for today's inequality. History isn't finished. Black history isn't finished. We all know that Martin Luther King said, "The arc of history is long, but it bends toward justice." History and his own life teach us that the arc of history doesn't bend by itself. It bends when we work together to bend it.